in years from now, when people get the COVID vaccine for the first time, we'll think of this actually as a 3-dose vaccine, that you need 3 doses to actually be vaccinated, and we won't be calling the 3rd dose a booster anymore. It really is what we need to make sure our immunity is as strong as possible against COVID.
And that language around it, I guess, goes into this, that it will no longer be fully vaccinated, you'll just be up to date. Why is that important?
Well, I think we have to prepare ourselves for, things to come with COVID. Hopefully we are going to have a period where things do settle down. But, there is a real risk. It's more likely than not that we'll be facing another variant, and we'll have to change our behaviors, perhaps get another booster when we face that. So I do think it's important that our language now starts to reflect that we're not back to normal. We're living with COVID, which means we have to be able to react quickly when there's a change in what's going on.
Let's have a look at what some areas are doing with restrictions. We've been talking this morning about South Australia increasing home visits from 10 to 50. We're looking at the UK, which is really jumping ahead, getting rid of all of its restrictions a month earlier than expected. What do you make of all that?
Well, I think that there's a responsible way to start to lift the measures that have helped control Omicron, and there's an irresponsible way. And when you look at what's happening in the UK, it kind of really is reminiscent of what they did last year when they were going into their summer. They just lifted all restrictions, even though everyone hadn't been boosted. Their case numbers remained high. Many people died in the UK over their summer. They had their freedoms, but some people really suffered for that. And then subsequently, they had the huge wave. So, having had quite a few cases and opening up didn't protect them from that. So they didn't develop, immunity from having the virus that allowed them to avoid the Omicron wave. So now they're lifting actually isolation, and that's based on zero data. So, I think that they're, to me, an example of their cautionary tale, their example of something that we shouldn't follow. But, I do think it's time to start thinking about what measures we can lift safely, see what happens in terms of, whether cases go up or not, and react to that. So I think slow but steady is the way to lift any of the measures that we have. And remember, we actually don't have that many restrictions as compared to, previous waves of COVID.
And also the numbers that you're seeing in WA, they're not increasing as rapidly as we've seen initially in other states when COVID got in there, this variant of it anyway, Omicron. Where do you see the WA situation going?
Well, they are going to have a wave of Omicron. There's no way they're going to be able to stop it entirely. But I think some things that are working in WA's favor, one thing that's really working in WA's favor is Omicron isn't coming in over the Christmas holidays. So we have to kind of really, when we reflect back on the Christmas holidays in Australia, they were one massive super spreading event. With everyone getting together, mixing and mingling in holiday celebrations, particularly New Year's celebrations, it really allowed the cases to skyrocket. So I think WA at least has the opportunity to make sure, there's no stopping the wave, but making sure that wave doesn't crest to, a tsunami kind of like wave that we had in the rest of Australia. And that's really important because even if it extends things out longer, what it means is that it doesn't kind of overwhelm all their capacities to make sure people are cared for well and make sure things like their grocery store shelves are stocked.
Reminds me of how we used to talk about dampening the curve early on. Nancy Baxter, thank you for joining us this morning and going through all that with us.
Thanks, Lisa.